Today I want to talk about NIS, Network Information Services, originally called Yellow Pages or YP. NIS or YP is a system that maintains and distributes a central directory of users and group information, hostname, email, aliases, and other text-based tables of information in a computer network. When I first started learning about NIS, I was a bit confused about exactly what it was and what it was used for. So I wanted to make this video with a more thorough explanation and an example of how it would come about in a real life scenario. Let's say, for example, that you were hired as a junior Linux administrator, and the company is small, and maybe they have 5 computers, and they're all linked together in one single LAN, and there's 2 other employees. These 2 employees can use any one of these computers at any given time. Now, when you set up Linux, when you set up CentOS in particular, you have to set up 2 accounts, one account for a user and one account for the root. Now, these 2 employees would be users. Now, let's say that this guy here, he wants to use this computer. So he comes in here, and let's say that when you originally set up this computer, you put him as a user. So he can log in, no problem. And this guy, let's say that he wants to log in, but you only set up one user, and that was this user. So he can't, this one can't log in. He wants to log in, but he can't. And let's say that because there was only 2 employees and 5 computers, you decided to only set up one user per computer. So now you have 3 computers that are basically doing nothing because they don't have active users. So this works fine, but the problem is that if this computer for some reason goes down or it crashes or something, then this user, of course, he's gonna try and use this computer, but he can't because originally you only set up these 2 computers for these 2 users. So as a Linux administrator, you would go in, you would go in here, and you would, you know, add a user to this computer, and you would put his name, and everything would be fine. Now, if you wanted to be a little bit more proactive, you could go ahead and go to each one of the computers and add both users into the computers. So now both users can log into any given computer. Let's suppose that your manager decides to hire a few more people. So now there's four people that need to use the computers. So you as a junior Linux administrator, you only set up the original first 2 users to use the computers. Of course, you were junior, you didn't know, you just wanted to get the job done. So now that there's 4 people, you have to go in here and set up an account for these 2 other users. So you go here, 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 and you're done, and everything's good. But there's a lot of work, right? So at the end of the day, you spend a lot of time setting up the computers for the for the 2 new users that the manager hired. You're probably tired. You know you have short legs. You have to walk a lot. You get very tired. Okay, so the next day you come into work and you found out that your manager again hired more people. So now there was the original 2 people plus the 2 people that he hired yesterday, and then 4 more people that he hired today. So what do? Of course you're not gonna like it. You're gonna be like, why didn't you just hire them yesterday? Then I only have to go and set up the computers one time. But that's not how he works. So you have to go in to every computer again and add the 4 new users. Now the next day you come into work, you find out that the manager he was not happy with the performance of 4 of the employees, and so he decided to fire them. Of course, the manager does not want these employees to be able to access the computers anymore because that would pose a liability. So he comes to you and orders you to go and remove these users. So now, of course, you're tired. It's the third day you have to do this. You have to go to each one of the computers and you have to remove those 4 users that he fired. So you're not liking this, of course. You might be thinking, why did I take this job? It's so much hassle. So you complete the task, but now you're wondering, okay, there's gotta be an easier way to do this. How can I add and remove users without physically having to go to each one of the stations and do it over and over again? If I keep doing it the way I'm doing it right now, by physically walking to each computer and configuring them, I'm gonna wear out my sneakers. So the solution is NIS. With NIS, you can have a couple of computers hooked together up in a network, and you can control the adding and removing of users from a single server. So instead of having to go to each one of the computers and add or remove users as needed, you simply set up the NIS server, you set up the NIS client, and then you can simply add and remove the users right from the NIS server. Now in Windows, this functionality also exists, which you might be familiar with as it is called Active Directory. Now that you understand why NIS is important, I will go ahead and show you how to install a NIS server, the NIS client, and how to add and remove users. Hi guys, I went ahead and paused the video, and I originally wanted to show you how to install a CentOS 7 minimal installation in VirtualBox for the NIS server and the NIS client in this video, but the video turned out way too long, and so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna split the videos up. So in another video, I'm gonna show you how to install the CentOS 7 minimal installation in VirtualBox. But in this video, I'm just gonna talk about how to configure NIS and how to add users. So if you wanna pause the video, you can look in my video description below, and I should have a link to another video of how to install VirtualBox and how to install the minimal CentOS installation in it. So whether you watched my video or you already knew how to install an image in VirtualBox, we're gonna go ahead and continue here. So I went ahead and loaded my NIS server and my NIS client in VirtualBox, and these are clean installations. There's nothing on them. Go ahead and log in here. So for both users, I created a user called user1, but you could you could call them anything. It could be um, user 9, user 10. It could be Hector. It could be my computer. Whatever. It doesn't matter. So in order to begin, you're gonna want to install the NIS. You're gonna want to configure the NIS server, and I made this little chart to make it easier to understand. So there's a couple of things you have to do. So the first thing you have to do is you have to install the NIS server packages, which is going to be ypserv and rpcbind. Then you want to set up your YP domain name, and you do this in two ways. You can either do it temporarily or permanently. Uh, and one important thing to note here is that YP domain name is not the same thing as DNS domain name. If you're kind of new to NIS, that might throw you off when you're trying to configure it. So just keep that in mind. YP domain name is not the same thing as DNS domain name. Um, After you do that, you're gonna set up SecureNet. SecureNet is it's a security feature in the NIS server that only allows certain IP certain IP domains to access it, and I'll show you in a little bit how that works. Then you're gonna set up the host file, and in the host file you're gonna tell the NIS server what IP it has, and you're gonna specify its fully qualified domain name and its host name. And you're also gonna specify the IP of the NIS client and the fully qualified domain name of the NIS client and the host name of the NIS client. After you do that, you're gonna enable the NIS services and you're gonna start them. Then you're gonna build your NIS database and you're gonna build your NIS maps. You're gonna open up your NIS ports. You're gonna restart your NIS services and you're gonna update your firewall. Now that seems like a lot, but it's not that hard. If you just follow along with this guide, you'll see it's not that hard. Okay, so let's go ahead and start off by installing the required services for the NIS server. So you're gonna go to yum install ypserv and rpcbind, and you need to either be root or you need to use sudo. I'm gonna go ahead and switch user to the root so I don't have to keep typing sudo every time. Let's try again. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and yum install pserv pcbind. And go ahead and click yes to install the packages. And let's clear our screen. Okay, now that the packages are installed, we can go ahead and move on to our setting up our YP domain name. So when you set up YP domain name, there's two ways to do it: the temporary way and the permanent way. You would use the temporary way if you are, let's say that the customer that you're working for, he doesn't want to reboot the server because he doesn't want it down. It might be be in production. For whatever reason, they don't want to reboot, so you could do it temporarily. So what you could do is you put YP domain name, and then you choose a YP domain name. So I'm gonna choose my homeschool.com. And now we put YP domain name. It should return my homeschool.com. Okay, this is temporary. If I were to reboot the server right now, the computer would forget this setting, and we would be back to square one. So let's go ahead and set it up permanently as well. And the way that you do that, if you go to VI, etc, sysconfig, and you open up your network file. Okay, so there's really nothing in here other than that comment up there. So what you're gonna do here is you're gonna put a NIS domain, and you're gonna set that equal to my homeschool.com. Of course, you can pick whatever. Just pick this for this example. Alright, the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to set up SecureNet. So what SecureNet is, it's a security feature of the NIS server. And the way it works is that you give access to the NIS server from a certain IP domain. So let's go ahead and look for it here. Then as you can see in our raw YP folder, there is no file called SecureNet. This is not a problem, this is not an error. By default, the file is not here. But when you add it, it will implement the security. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and add the loopback subnet and IP. And we're gonna go ahead and add the subnet for the network we're on and the IP domain of the network we're on. This might be different for some of you. It might be something like 192.168.0.0. Some home routers they use this IP domain by default, and some of them use 10.0.0.0. Mine in particular uses 10.0.0.0, so that's why I'm using 10.0.0.0. So that's safe. So now the next thing we have to do is we have to set up our host file. So let's clear our screen here. Let's go VI, etc. Okay. What we need to add here is we need to add two IPs. We have to add the IP of the client and the fully qualified domain name of the client, and we have to add the IP of the NIS server and the fully qualified domain name of the NIS server, along with the host name of both of them. So let's go ahead and do that. Before I type anything, I'm gonna exit out and I'm gonna check what my IP domain name. I'm sorry. Before we do that, I'm gonna check what my IP for my NIS server is. So as you can see, my IP here is 10.0.0.49. And now I have to give it a fully qualified domain name. Something that will explain that better. So I just pulled this up from Google. It tell you exactly what it is. So a fully qualified domain name consists of a host name and a domain name. So here we're gonna give it a host name, and I'm gonna call our NIS server main. You could call it something else. You could call it server, or you could call it NIS_server. I'm just gonna call it main for simplicity. And then we're gonna give it the host name, my homeschool.com, and again we're gonna use the host name. So this is the syntax that you have to use here. So you have to give it the IP, you have to give it the fully qualified domain name, and then you have to give it a +C. So that's what I did here. That's why I have 10.0.0.49. Then I have the fully qualified domain name, which is main.myhomeschool.com, and then the host name, which is me. Okay, so that's for the NIS server. Now we're gonna do it for the NIS client. So what we want to do here is we want to check what the IP of the NIS client is. Okay, so our IP here is going to be 10.0.0.5. So that's what we're going to activate 10.0.0.5. And we're going to give it a fully qualified domain name, which we're going to call client.myhomeschool.com, and the host name again is client. Let's go ahead and save this file. Okay. Okay, the next thing we need to do here is we need to start enabling the NIS services. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to go ahead and run a systemctl start, and we're going to give it the services we're going to start, which is going to be RPC 9, YPserve, and we're also going to start YP XFRD and YP P8SSWD. Okay, so they're started. Now, if we ever reboot the server, these services don't come up automatically. But if you run the command enable on this command line, it will make it so that they do start up automatically when the server starts reboots or shuts down. Okay, now we have to build the NIS database, and the way we're going to do that is we're going to run this command, and it has to be run from the full command. Now what it's asking us here is asking if we have any other NIS servers. So in practice, you might have one NIS master, and you might have a couple of NIS slave servers, and they're used for redundancy in case one server goes down, and then the other servers can pick back up. So we don't have anything, so we're just gonna go ahead and put Control D if we only have one NIS server, which is the main.myhomeschool.com. Yes, everything's correct. Alright. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to build the NIS maps. And what that is that anytime that your NIS client wants to switch to a user that you created in the NIS server, it needs a way to know that that user exists. And that functionality is provided by the NIS maps. So the NIS maps will take the new user that you built in the NIS server, and it will store the information, such as the username and the user password. And then the NIS client, when it tries to switch to that user, that is the information that it will retrieve from the NIS server in order to know that it is a real user. So what we're going to do here is we're going to change drive to var IP. Then we're going to type make. So everything's now one thing I need to mention, you need to make sure you either you do this using root or running sudo, because let's say I try to do the same thing here under the user one. And by the way, it's an administrator user. Let's see where we are. I think it puts in a different folder. Yeah, puts in a different folder. Okay, let's go ahead and change drive to bar. Okay. And it gives us an error here. So you either use sudo or you use the root user to do this. So yeah, see, if you run it with sudo, it also works. Okay, let's move on. So you created your maps, and now you're moving to open the NIS ports. So in order to communicate with the NIS server to the NIS client, they need a port open, and those ports, it's going to be port 944, 945, and 946. We're going to go ahead and open those ports by going into the network file. So let's switch back to the root user, so we don't have to type sudo every time. type here is we're gonna type YP serve underscore args equals, and then we're gonna type dash p and the port number, which is 944. Oops. Yeah, type one here. Dash p serve again. Dash p 944. And we're gonna do the same thing with the YP xfrd underscore args equals NIS p 945. Let's save the file here. Okay, now we're gonna clear the screen and we're gonna open up another port on port 946, and this one we have to go to a different file called etc sysconfig ypp password. Okay, so let's open up that file. We'll scroll down here where it says ypp password underscore args, and here you are gonna put port 946. Okay, let's save that file. Alright, so now all the ports are open and everything's configured. So what we're gonna do now is because we made so many changes, we have to restart these services in order to pick up the changes that we made. We're gonna put systemctl restart rpc bind yp serve yp xfrd and yp pass. Okay. So we're all set with the only exception of the firewall. So for demonstration purposes, I could just disable the firewall. But I'm gonna go ahead and show it in case you're at home trying to call this guy and you need the firewall up. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and proceed to add the firewall rules. And what we're gonna do here is firewall cmd add port. I'm sorry, add service equals rpc bind success. Now we're gonna add the ports. Add port equals 944 TCP terminal. Okay. Same thing for same port with UDP. Okay. Now same thing for 945 and 945 TCP. We're almost done here. 946 UDP. We're gonna go ahead and reload the firewall. We're gonna run the command firewall cmd reload. So at this point, our NIS server is fully configured. We went through all the steps here, steps 1 through 10. We configured everything. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to our NIS client. I'm gonna go ahead and clear the screen here, and we're gonna start with our NIS client. So let's clear the screen and go to our NIS client here. So we're gonna go ahead and install the 2 services required, which is gonna be YP bind and RPC bind. So let's go ahead and do yum. Now notice that I'm root. Now if you're not root, then you have to use sudo all the time. So let's keep that in mind. Okay, and just as before, we have to set up our YP domain name. And I'm gonna say myhost.com, and we're gonna switch into the file where we can write the YP domain name permanently. So ADI etc config network. And I'm just doing here the same thing I did with the NIS server. we're gonna define it set up NIS domain equals my.school.com. Go ahead and exit, save and exit. And now we're gonna modify our host file. IPC host. Okay. Again, we're doing the exact same thing that we did in the NIS server. So 10.10.0.0.49. And that was main.myhostfoo.com with the host name of main. And this one was 10.0.0.5.client.myhostfoo.com. If you skipped through some of the video and you're wondering where I got this main and client, just go back through my video and see this exact same portion of the video when I was talking about the NIS server, and it'll make sense. Okay, now we're gonna enable the NIS. We're gonna enable NIS on the client and give it some parameters. Now I'm not talking about the NIS services yet. I'm talking about some of the parameters that you have to give it to enable NIS. Okay. So you can do this with the command called alt config, and then you run enable NIS. You give it the NIS domain. It's gonna equal my.school.com. We're gonna give it the NIS server. And we're gonna give it the fully qualified domain name of the NIS server, which is main.myhostfoo.com. And we're gonna give it one more parameter here, which is enable make. And what this will allow is that when the users are created, it will also make it over. Alright. Now at this point, if you got an error right here, it's because you didn't set up the settings correctly. So you could go back to my video and make sure that you set up your NIS client correctly. Go ahead and continue here. So we're gonna start the service, systemctl, start, RPC bind, and YP bind. Okay. Now a very common problem that you will get right here is that you'll be able to start RPC bind, no problem. But when you try to start YP bind, you're gonna get an error. Now I didn't because I configured everything correctly, but I'm showing you what could happen. So let's say for example that you were rushing here, and when you set up your NIS server, you went VI var YP secure nets, and you accidentally put a 9 here instead of a 0. You know the number 9 and the 0 are right next to each other, so it's very possible that you can do that. We undo this change. Look at this. Insert 9, 0, insert. Okay. Now I'm gonna go ahead and reload services. Restart the services. And now it has picked up the change that I made to secure nets. So when I try to start the YP bind again, it's gonna give me an error. See, you can already see that there's actual communicating. It's taking a long time. So we're gonna wait a couple of seconds here and see what the error message should pop up here. So as you can see, it came up back with an error here. With it fails because of the control process exited with an error code. So you could go here and try and figure out what happened, but I can tell you these journal entries, they're very hard to decode. So right here, right, you can see that it took 51 seconds, and the NIS server is not responding, and then the process failed. So as you get more familiar with Linux, this will become more apparent, but for a new user, this might not make any sense, right? It might be, where do I go from here? So, let's go back over here and let's fix this problem. So that's a very common problem that you'll get. I wanted to make sure I showed you that. Okay. And then now if we go back here and try to start it again, it starts right up. Okay, let's look at our PowerPoint here. So we enabled NIS, we started the NIS services, we have to enable the services here. So again, enabling them will make it so that anytime the server restarts, it will automatically start these services. All right, we're almost done. So all we have to do at this point is update our firewall, and we can do a little bit of troubleshooting just to make sure it's working. So um, if you want to fast forward through this firewall entries, you can. It's going to be the same thing that I did with the NIS server. So we're going to go firewall cmd at service equals rpc bind permanent. Okay, success. And then at port equals 944 TCP permanent. Okay, success. Now we're going to do the same for the UDP port, and the same thing for 945 UDP and also TCP. And finally, we're going to do it for UDP for port 946. Firewall command reload will make this settings take effect. Okay, so now we're done. So now our NIS client is fully configured. Our NIS server is fully configured. We can do a little bit of troubleshooting here just to make sure it's working. So if we run this command ypwitch, it should return the name, the fully qualified domain name of the NIS server. And it is, so it's saying main.myhomeschool.com. Okay, we can also try and ping it, make sure we have a connection to it. And of course it's replying. Okay. All right, so we get down to the last portion, which is how to add users. How do I add a user here? So let's say that I wanted to make a new user called um, pencil. Okay, so what I have to do here is I have to go and add user add pencil. Okay, now it added the user, and we have to give it a password. So we're gonna go PSSWD pencil, and now it's gonna ask for a password here. So the password is gonna be password. It doesn't like that because it's a dictionary name, but since I'm root, I can do it anyways. So it took it. So okay, so now the NIS server has a new user called pencil, and if I go to the NIS client and I switch user to user pencil, it does not work. So don't panic. This is normal. So the reason it didn't work is because if you remember earlier in the video, I was talking about YP maps. So in order for the NIS client to be able to connect to a user that you created in the NIS server, it needs to know that it exists. And it knows this by looking at the YP maps. And so we haven't created the YP maps here, so that's why it's failing. So if we change our directory to var YP and we type the command make, it's going to create that YP map. So now it's done. So now we go back here and we try it again. New pencil, and it went ahead and went in. It didn't ask us for the password because we logged in through root. But if we were to be a non-root user, like user one, and to type in switch user to pencil, it's gonna ask us for a password, and our password is password. And there it is. We went ahead and logged in. So I hope that this has been informative to you, and I hope everything was covered. If there was something I missed or something that was not completely obvious, go ahead and place it in the comments, and I'll go back here and try and rework it, make it more understandable. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button, and I hope you come back and see my videos again.